Welcome back everyone to our gameplay series of X4 Foundations. And before we get into what I had planned for today's episode, which was to delve a little bit more into the aspect of trading and or mining, if you wanted to focus on a particular sector and maybe build up your relationship with a certain faction, or to make sure that certain factions or certain stations within a sector were kept fully stocked, just different things like that is what I wanted to get into. But before we get to that, I just had to share this particular situation with you. Currently, I'm inside one of my fighters. Okay, and normally this would not be a big deal because I spend a lot of time allowing the AI to pilot, and I simply give them orders to go back and forth between different stations and what have you. But here recently, I have noticed that a lot of times exactly what's happening to me right now has been happening. And that is, I'm not sure if you can hear it in the background. There we go. It just happened. But what's happening is essentially the AI pilot, we are supposed to be going right over here, which is our player HQ. And I've told it to go over there and dock. So it seems like a very simple thing to request. And normally it wouldn't be a big deal at all. We would fly right over there. But what's happening is she is trying to engage the travel drive, but it will not do it. So it'll go through the beep, 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 and then boom, and it'll try to go for a second, but then, as you can tell on the screen, we're not going anywhere. So she just keeps doing this repeatedly over and over and over. So if I just leave her here, and if I'm in, the map menu or looking through a bunch of other things working with my stations, I won't even realize that we're not actually moving for some time. So it's getting very frustrating. I've noticed a few things like that on this particular save, and it's making me think that this particular save may have outlived its usefulness. Now, I hate to say that because I got a lot more stuff that I really wanted to do with this save, but I've had some other really, really glitchy things that have not happened to me in the past that have started happening in this save. And again, if it comes down to it, I'll simply start a brand new save and, work my way back through the first few hours of gameplay. The good news is I don't mind doing that because I really enjoy that. But the bad news is it's frustrating to have to do it because of different things that you're having within the game. Some of the other issues that I've seen here recently in this save, and again, this is a new save. This isn't one that I've been carrying over since the release of the game or anything like that. This save was actually started with version 1.50, I believe. So it's a fairly recent save. But I've seen things like my stations were momentarily, and by momentarily I mean maybe for about 5 minutes in game, they were reversed. One of the stations is making space fuel, and the other station, which is the HQ right in front of us here, is actually making multiple things such as engine parts and refined metals and so on. Those two stations were reversed, and a lot of the modules were in red, and a lot of different things were happening that just were, you could tell everything was glitching out. And I had to get out and restart, and go through that process a few times, and we're finally back to somewhat normal. But with all these little glitches that are coming in, it's going to make it very difficult for me to try and continue with this save long term. But for at least today's video, we're going to get through it and do the best we can. All right, so now we can move on to what I had originally planned to talk about in today's video. And this video is probably going to be a little bit shorter than normal, in part because I only wanted to talk about one specific thing today as it relates to trading and or mining, but also because of the issues I'm having with this particular save. So we'll see how all that goes. But let's move on to the trading aspect. I have just commissioned a new trader down here below us. This is one of the few times I've actually used this particular module, simply because it doesn't have quite the inventory space of the Mercury. So we've got this one here. The cargo space is not going to matter for our purposes today. So if I come in under our map and show the property that we currently own, in addition to our two stations that we currently have running, one is making space fuel currently. And then I'm working on getting some things taken care of so they can make all of the parts of Space Fuel on its own without having to purchase anything. And then I am making engine parts and building a whole part station on here. And of course, in addition to that, all the modules that we would need to make as much of these components as possible with the time and the blueprints that I have currently. So what I've done right now is, for trading purposes, I have 2 traders right here, and you can see this is the mod that I'm using. I absolutely love the mods when it comes to auto trading or auto mining, simply because I know that the person who created that mod has very similar or the same goals as I do in mind. They want this thing to work and they want it to be efficient and so on. So I really like the mods, and they're continually updated. So the Tater Trader mod is something I've had a lot of success with. I think he's actually released 1, maybe even 2 updates since the last time I actually checked on the mod. So it's probably time for me to update the mod once again. And again, that's something I love about mods, is that I know these people are passionate about achieving that certain goal for that mod. So it lets me know that they're going to be on top of it. When things don't work right, they're going to fix it, as opposed to the developers who are trying to deal with an entire game. And certain aspects don't work at all, or don't work as well as they should, but they can't really devote a ton of time to those at any given period. So that's one of the reasons why I love mods so much. So I have currently 2 auto traders out here working, and if we bring up their information, I basically have turned them loose. They are free to trade most any. Right now I do have Space Weed, which is a very lucrative where to trade, but I have it turned off since it was costing me a little bit of faction relations with Argon. But other than that, I basically turn them loose and let them trade in most anything that they want to. These are my guys that are out there simply to make a profit. I allow them their max distance to go to buy as far as their skill level will allow them, and the same thing on the max gate distance to sell maximum. I just want them to simply look for profit. And then on the own station cost, this is one of the things I believe he's actually updated in the Tater Trader mod, is you now have a little bit different options, I believe, on that. But anyway, the own station cost, I have it run down really low, simply because, if possible, I'd like for him to trade with the stations that I own and make sure that we're selling all of the product that we're creating. That's not such a big deal with these guys. I have some other ships that we're going to take a look at here in just a second that will specialize more in the stations that I own and or want to make sure are fully stocked. So I have 2 set up to work that way. Now let's come back out, and we have 2 traders that are set up to work a little bit differently. Let's start out with the Space Fuel Trader. Now this guy is essentially set up the way I would have a trader ship that was assigned as a subordinate to a station, but I don't really like how that currently works in the game, so I'm using the mod to accomplish the same thing, but it works much better this way. All right, so if we click on this guy, you can see right now he is named Space Fuel Trader because he is working exclusively. There you can see we're online here, so we've got plenty of people roaming around in our galaxy, but this guy is working exclusively in what is now called our pharmaceutical goods factory, i.e. our space fuel factory, currently operating over here in Hativa's Choice, number 1, or at least I believe that's number 1. Yes, number 1. And so this guy, again, the Tater Trader mod is what I'm using for the default behavior, and this guy is assigned to this particular factory, and his only wear is space fuel. But the real benefit of this comes in when we get down to the gate distance to buy and sell. His gate distance to buy is 0, meaning that I always want him to buy within this sector over here where the factory is that he is attached to. That's where I want him to buy from, and it just so happens that As of the time I built this, there was only one space fuel factory there, which is mine. So I don't have to worry about where he's buying from. And then as far as where he can go to sell, I want him to go wherever he needs to go, up to, of course, the limits of his ability as far as the number of gates he can jump. And then same thing here with the owned station cost. I have it run down at or very close to the minimum, simply because I want him to, regardless of what else is happening, I want him to try to spend as much time trading for our station as he can. And in this case, I've set it up to where he has very few options, and basically this guy is going to keep this station sold out as much as possible. And you can see he's coming back home now from another trading expedition. He's going to come back home, and he's actually going to dock here at the station until he's ready, until we produce more space fuel and he's ready to go again. Now, the other trader that I have right now, and I've just simply labeled him Wharf Trader. And the reason I did that is because he's not attached to a particular station. This is more about types of stations. And this guy, I want him to focus on shipyards and wharfs. So we've got a couple here in Argon Prime that I want to make sure are kept stocked. So what I wanted to test out with, and again, we're using the Tater Trader mod. And so what I did was I attached this guy as his home, and of course we're going to make him homebound, meaning that he's going to return here each time he starts to look for a new trade. But I've attached him to our factory here in the sector, and I'm only allowing him to work with two different pieces, the engine parts and the hull parts, because in this particular save game, those are the two limiting factors that I've seen constantly for the wharfs as well as the shipyard. So I wanted to have a dedicated trader that, again, he's going to make money, but I'm not so much worried about that as I am him keeping the wharf and or the shipyard stocked so that I can get ships made whenever I need to. And if I'm fortunate enough to be able to continue with this save long term, then I will continue to expand this if I need to, and I find out that the wharf and or the shipyard is becoming short on any other items that are not being delivered regularly by the traders. So this guy, maximum distance to buy is 0. And again, that's so that because we're now going to be making these two parts here in this station, I want him to focus on purchasing what he needs here. There's also, I believe, one other hull parts factory here in the sector that's actually down here toward the bottom right, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. But the main thing here, again, is just keep the wharf and or the shipyard fully stocked so that I can get ships built as I need to. And then as far as the maximum gate distance to sell, right now I have this at 20 out of 20 so that this guy can go far and wide to deliver these parts. If I wanted to, I could simply bring this down to 0 as well, just like I did with the buy distance. Simply focus on Argon Prime and only Argon Prime. This would be helpful if you were about to start a conflict, or you were really looking to starve out one of the other factions. Then this would be a great way to do that. You could simply take your traders and have them focus only on one sector, and that way you can keep that sector or that particular faction supplied in parts, and the other guys don't get any. So again, several different options you can do with this, but this is how I've been testing it out. And for right now, it doesn't matter to me where they're actually selling these, as long as we're purchasing the parts, and nearly all of these will come from our own station here. And then the rest will come from within this particular sector. But the main thing is it will keep the wharf and the shipyard fully stocked as much as possible. Let's take a look at what this guy, he's got loaded up a trade right now. All right, looks like he's going to buy some hull parts. Okay, we don't have our hull parts production set up quite yet. It's still under production. It's still got a build time remaining on it here at our high-tech factory. So he's going to go here in the same area. He's still going in Argon Prime. He's going to buy some hull parts, and then he's going to take them over to, where is he going right now? Oh, he's going to True Sight. Okay, so he's going for a different faction entirely. So he's making a little bit of extra money on the side. So everything is working the way I want it to for now. And as always, I will continually change these variables around to test how different things are working, make sure they're working, and in general, just that sort of thing overall. So that's how I have been doing this playthrough. I've been purchasing all of the blueprints rather than trying to get them by scanning stations, and it's really been quite a bit of fun. You can see the money that's coming in is quite nice. There's no issues there, and we have plenty of room to expand our empire, but I am having quite a bit of fun, and I hope that the issues I'm having are just temporary with this particular save, and I'm able to keep going longer term into the future so that I can expand some of the things that I'm working on for now. But that's what I wanted to show you guys that I'm testing out currently. We've got a couple of traders, again, just to summarize, a couple of traders that are working on simply making money. That's all I care about that they're doing. And then I've got a couple of guys that are focused on certain tasks. The space fuel trader is focused on selling off all of the space fuel that our particular station is manufacturing, and then the wharf trader who's trying to make sure that we always have the ability to get ships built as needed. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned as we will continue our testing and gameplay of X4 Foundations.